So one topic that has absolutely taken hold online and been hotly debated and discussed over the last few days has been Nintendo Switch and their continued sales momentum, as there are a couple different data points in recent memory suggesting that we may be at something of a fall off or slowdown point for the strong momentum we have seen Nintendo carry this generation so far. And in today's video, I want to break down the newest data point that does show some slowing momentum for the Switch and discuss what Nintendo may end up ultimately doing as we walk into years like 2023 and 2024, and have that big conversation on whether or not we should be expecting Nintendo to throw any kind of curveballs in their strategy with the current Switch, or just straight up give us new Nintendo Switch hardware anytime soon. What's up, Nation? If it's your first time on the channel, make sure you join Sunbro Nation by subscribing below, hit the like button on this video if you enjoy it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. Now, as I mentioned, guys, today we are having that fun conversation around what Nintendo may need to do as we get into the tail end and farther into the Switch's life cycle. I think everybody can agree at this point that yes, while we've seen massive success for this Nintendo Switch console so far, it is absolutely hitting a aging point where you do see AAA major first party even published Nintendo games hit the platform that are clearly having some performance issues. And while I will personally always remain a gameplay first minded gamer, there is definitely a conversation to be had around the Tegra X1 and how it runs games in the current age, especially when we start to think of how games like Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, that will be ultimately Nintendo's most likely biggest 2023 title. And I think things like smoother frame rate and higher resolution sound nice to Zelda fans when we consider games like this, but the reason this is being hotly debated online right now, and the conversation on if Nintendo actually needs to do something different sooner rather than later, has to do with a couple different recent sales numbers in terms of how the console has performed compared to the competition. Because something you may know about the Switch era of gaming that we've been in this entire time is that 9 times out of 10, Nintendo is always dominating the charts in terms of console unit sales when it comes to competitors like the PlayStation 5. And over on Gamatsu, where you can see some sales data from Famitsu, which is all Japan-based data, keep in mind, so this is not any other portion of the world, but there is an interesting stat from the most recent sales data that was published from the week of October 24th through the 30th, where in a market where the Switch typically is always dominant and the console leader, yes indeed, they have fallen behind the PlayStation 5, as you can see for the month, 34,287 coming from PlayStation 5 hardware, and the Switch OLED model finishing out at 23,399. Now, yes, do they have other variations of their console like the base model Switch and the PlayStation 5 Digital Edition? Yes, they do, but the notable talking point here is that this is clearly a slowdown for the Nintendo Switch sales momentum that we've always expected in a market like Japan for the Switch to be the console market leader. Now, I also think that this is being overblown a little bit, as the Nintendo Switch is still selling incredibly well, and so don't get me wrong on that. There is still plenty of sales to come, and Nintendo can most likely coast to another 15 or 20 million units somewhat easily, but we are around the corner from an upcoming investors meeting or quarterly financial briefing from Nintendo, and it will be very interesting to see if they adjust any of their sales forecasts that they've committed to around that 20 plus million units for the fiscal year. If they are pulling back that number because of these type of declines we are seeing, well, then you do have to have that honest conversation on whether or not Nintendo shouldn't hold on to the base model Switch hardware and the current lineup today for too long, as we've seen them do that in previous generations like the Wii era, when motion was the big household craze and everybody ended up getting into gaming. Even non-gamers were often picking up a Wii, and it was marketed something as like the family console your grandparents could play, because even they could understand the concept of motion and games, and that was vastly successful for Nintendo. It was also a different target audience than your core gamers that we see the Switch really resonate with today. So when we had the follow-up to that console being the Wii U, it was absolutely a utter failure in terms of sales performance, because you came off of 100+ million unit seller like the Wii, and then the lifetime of the Wii U sales finished out just over 13 million. So yes, by all accounts, that was a rough transition for Nintendo, and you can blame it on the marketing and how they actually chose to position the Wii U itself, because I would agree that the average consumer, especially a non-core gamer, may have looked at that and thought it was just a tablet controller add-on for the existing Wii and not really fully understood that this was Nintendo's true next generation. And that then plays into the conversation of how Nintendo should handle the current lineup and family of Nintendo systems right now, as the Switch, I think you can all agree, is a household staple name at this point. We're well over 111 million units of that console being out there and available. You have the Switch Lite, you have the Switch base model that launched back in 2017, and you now have the OLED in that family of systems as well. And does Nintendo make a hard break from the Nintendo Switch branding and go with something entirely new? My bet personally is no, and I think that they treat this just a little bit more like a handheld console that it technically is. And if you look back at history with things like the DS, 3DS lineup of gaming systems for Nintendo, there were multiple iterations of those consoles in the same technical generation, even with more powerful new 3DS hardware that was ultimately launched, that even had a select library of games that could only be run on that new version, cutting out some of the existing user base of the 3DS. And I think that slow incremental upgrade path could potentially be what we see with this current generation of hardware and the current success of the Switch, as President Shintaro Furukawa has stated multiple times directly from his own mouth that he is taking the transition into whatever is next for new Nintendo hardware very seriously, because he is aware of how Nintendo has misstepped and mishandled this hardware transition in the past. And with the current environment we are in, with cloud gaming really not being something that is feasible for most people to play their games on the go, I think the hybrid form factor makes sense for the foreseeable future right now. 10 years down the line, it might not make any sense depending on where we're at with technology, but for now, I think there is a large market of gamers that you can clearly see Nintendo Switch is having a lot of new competitors. If you look around in the marketplace just over the last year, really, we've seen things like the Steam Deck come out and really have a large core audience behind it that is more of the PC user base, I would argue, but it's definitely resonating with gamers. And then you have other companies like Logitech and even Razer hopping on board, trying to market and put out their own portable consoles for that AAA gaming experience wherever you are at. And I do think that there's plenty of people out there that gravitate towards that because of how successful the Switch has been, and because they realize that it is nice to be able to play a AAA game like a Legend of Zelda title with the top tier graphics and have the convenience of seeing it on a large TV screen. Then you have to go run an errand and you want to take it with you because you're going to be waiting around in an office for a while or whatever you're doing. You get it. You can take your Switch, undock it, and it is with you mobile on the go. Even probably how most people use it and how I use it is sometimes I'm in the living room on the couch, where I do even have a dock available there that I could go hook it up with, but maybe I want to watch wrestling on TV or something else, and I also want to play a video game on this at the same time. I am a fan of doing that, having a background entertainment while you're also doing more of a relaxed game or something that you're kind of playing off and on, and your attention span isn't fully taken up on one or the other. It's nice to have that flexibility, and so I don't think Nintendo abandons the hybrid form factor, and I also think it would make a lot of sense for them at this point in time to start considering the middle of 2023, right along the launch with Tears of the Kingdom. In my opinion, would be the smartest time to come out with something that is still the Nintendo Switch, but that is a more powerful model. Super Nintendo Switch, Nintendo Switch Pro, Nintendo Switch 2, however they choose to brand it. It might not be the hard generational break, and we might have a library of games that still run across both platforms for the most part, but having something that can run and support games with maybe DLSS technology, enabling things like an upscaled 4K capability for the vast majorities of TVs, of course, that are being sold now and really that are ultimately getting very affordable for people to pick up. Nintendo needs to support the standard resolution for the marketplace, and the longer they wait on that, the more reason there is to sometimes seek out the alternative options that do allow games to be played at those higher resolutions with those smoother frame rates. Graphics and frame rate are not everything at the end of the day, but they do absolutely play into the end user's experience and the mainstream eyeballs. When you see a game that looks great and impressive and runs smooth, you are more likely to go give that a chance than one that looks like it is struggling to run in an efficient manner. But regardless of all of that, Nintendo is definitely still in a very strong place when it comes to software. We won't go through all of this, but you have games like Splatoon launching, doing fantastic numbers in Japan, Bayonetta 3 right behind it. They definitely have heavy hitters and evergreen titles like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe that will never stop selling for them, that are going to ultimately propel their revenue where they want it to be. It is just going to come down to whether or not they hold on to what is current for too long before that existing user base that I do think has hit somewhat of a market saturation point on the people who want to have a Nintendo Switch for the most part, broadly speaking. Not everybody out there, but most people, I think you can now say, have probably had the opportunity to look into and make a decision on whether or not they want a Switch Lite, OLED, or even the base model Switch. And it might be time for Nintendo to get creative with something new and maybe even slash the prices of something like the base model Switch that I think can also give them some extra life. And will we one day, if they do indeed do this somewhat of a refresh next year or even into 2024, will we be saying Nintendo has the most successful home console, granted it's a hybrid system, of all time? And will we ultimately say it is the best performing gaming console ever, period, even in the handheld space? I think there is a strong possibility that Nintendo does walk away with that prestigious award if navigated correctly in these upcoming years with the current model Switch. If we're waiting till 2025 with nothing new and no kind of hardware refresh or reason to go pick up an additional Switch model, I cannot see them posting the large successful numbers that we have seen them doing so far this console generation. And really nobody has ever gone past the 6th year in the console generation space and had vast success. It's just that technology moves fast, and ultimately we will see the Nintendo Switch decline. So for the sake of sales momentum and Nintendo's bottom line as a whole, I don't think will be very far away from finding out what is next in the future, period. But I want to hear from you guys at this point in the video, all your personal thoughts and opinions on where Nintendo is at with their current lineup of hardware today. Do you think we do need a refresh, something as soon as 2023, launching alongside of a game like Zelda Tears of the Kingdom? Do you think that that's what they do indeed have planned? Or maybe it still comes out next year, but not alongside of Tears of the Kingdom, and they actually position it as a holiday launch window type of console? Or do you think that we are on this ride for quite a bit longer, and 2024 or even 2025 is the very soonest that we may see Nintendo reveal any type of plans for anything when it comes to a more powerful Switch? Do you think that they actually hold out to that point and just do entirely new concept that isn't hybrid form factor? I think that would be a big mistake, but that's definitely on the table because Nintendo is a ridiculously creative company. So regardless of all your thoughts and feelings on everything we talked about today, I do look forward to hearing from you all in the comments down below before you leave the video, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around this topic. Go watch yesterday's video next if you haven't already, which is on screen right now. Also make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.